In this video, I'm going to explain how to create these custom line styles for Bluebeam Revu so you can make your own custom line styles. You can download these styles and many more for free at bbtoolsets.com/free. Let's get started. First, we need a place to store our line styles. So I'm going to create a line. Select that line, and there are two places where you can manage the line style sets. Either one at the top, and if you scroll all the way to the top, you'll see Manage. Or over here, under the Properties tab, you scroll all the way to the bottom, and you can select Manage. And this brings up your line style sets. I've got the standard built-in, plus the BBToolsets active. Just to make it easier to find our line styles, I'm going to deactivate the BBToolsets. And I'm going to add a new line style set. This will be our temp line styles, and click OK. And now that brings up a new line style set, and this is where we can add line styles. So let's make our first line style. I'm going to mimic the dash dot dot. So let's click Add, and this will be dash dot dot. Okay. And we have our name. Now you can use a description if you wanted to add more detail. I generally try to make the name as descriptive as necessary. So let's start by making our line components. First, you have the lines area. We're just going to make a single line. We'll get to multi-lines later. So under components, the first thing we're going to add is a dash. And you can see there are other options, space, dot, text, and vector. Again, we'll get to those, starting with a dash, OK. Now in the preview box, you'll see that this is just a solid line, and that's because we have a series of dashes 3 units long, just repeating over and over and over again. So let's add another component, a space, hit OK. Now you see we have a dash that's 3 units long and a space that's 3 units long, and then it just continuously repeats. I'll continue to add components. So under the dot, select OK. There are no properties for the dot, but you'll see it doesn't show up again because the dot is right next to the previous dash. Add a space. OK. And then one more dot. And finally, we need another space just to separate that. So now we have dash dot dot line type. Now let's just edit this a little bit more now that we have all of our components in. Under the dash, I want to make this longer. Make that 8. The space we can leave at 3. And again, the dots don't have any properties. So notice that I have not checked scale with line thickness. Let's hit OK and see what that means. Again, our new dash dot dot line is installed. Hit OK, and then one more time. Now with this line selected, under Style, I can scroll all the way to the bottom where we have temp line styles and the new dash dot dot. And you can see we now see dash dot dot. And I can increase the width, thickness of this line, and you'll see that the dashes and dots are all remaining the same thickness. And unfortunately, the dot is just a dot with no thickness to it. So I think we need to go back into this line style and modify it slightly so that as we change the thickness of the line, the dashes and dots are also changing. So we can do that under here, again under the Manage tool, or just to show you a different way, in the top toolbar at the top is Manage. Select the temp line styles where we have our dash dot dot line, click Modify, select that line, modify again, and we can change this checkbox for scale with line thickness, and that's going to change both the length of each component and also the thickness of each component when we change the line thickness. So click OK again and one more time. Now that doesn't automatically change. Need to go in and reselect that line type, and that's to prevent all of your lines from changing across a drawing. So I will come down, reselect this, and you'll see automatically changes. Now we see larger dots and larger dashes, And when I change the line width, they will also change along with it. Okay, next, let's create a line that is a 2-hour line, and we're going to use text to notate that. So I'll create a new line, click that line. Up here under Manage, we can go into our temp line styles, modify, and we'll create a new line by clicking Add. And this is going to be called 2-hour wall. Okay. Now in our components, we'll start again. If you look at this, we'll start with a dash. So first is a dash. Okay. Then we need the space. And then our next component is going to be the text. So select text and click OK. Now we have a series of properties to choose from. I'm going to make this a 2-hour. You can choose your font and your font size. I'm going to make this font a little bit larger, maybe font size 6. I am not going to make it bold or italic, but you can if you need to. And I'm going to leave this as text upright. What happens is if you don't do this and you draw a polyline or you draw a line in a different orientation, the text will potentially show upside down, as you can see in this little pop-up box here. So I'm going to leave it so that all of our text shows upright. Now in the preview, you can see we have a dash, a space, text, and then no more space, so I need to add another space. Click OK, and now you can see the preview of our line, and of course we want to make our dashes longer. So as with before, we'll go back and increase those until we get to a point where we like that. I'm actually going to make the spaces a little bit tighter on this one, so I'll move those down to 2. And you can do these in smaller segments. So for instance, let's just do 1.5 for the dash, or I'm sorry, for the space. We'll change this one as well, 1.5. Click OK. OK again, and one more time. Now when we select this line, I'll come over to the properties bar this time, select our 2-hour wall, and that shows up. Now if you change the line width, you'll see that's getting thicker, but the text isn't getting any larger. So if you want the text to get larger, which generally is the case, you can change that scale with line type. So we'll come in to Manage, Modify, select the line style, modify again, scale with line thickness. Okay. And just a reminder, you do have to reselect that line type again for that to work. All right, now we're going to look at including vectors within our line types. So I will create a new line here. Select that line. Come into Manage our line styles. Select our set. Modify it. And we'll add one. This is going to be a 2-hour wall with diamonds. So I'm just going to go ahead right from the start and scale that. And I'm going to quickly run through this. Since you're aware of how we did this, you can follow along. All right, now we've got our dash and our space. The next component we want to add is a diamond. And if I click the plus, there is no diamond component. So I have to actually make one myself using the vector tool. So select vector. And this brings up a grid where you can draw your own shapes using lines, arcs, and circles. So let's draw a diamond. Now, our center line of our line is going to run right through the middle of this. So I will draw a diamond. So from here, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, and make a narrow diamond. And then again, 1, 2, 3. So now I have a diamond drawn, and you can see that shows up in the preview. I'm actually going to select the fill tool because I want that to be filled, and you can see it fills it in. Now that might be a little bit narrow, so we can come in and edit this. Maybe move these out one spot. And you can see I've snapped to grid. You can also snap to content, but right now I'm just drawing everything based on the grid. I'll move those out. And now we have a chunkier diamond that will show up better. Now you can see the spaces are uneven. So I've got my dash and my space, but this space is much larger than this space. And that's because of the padding that's associated with this vector. I can pull that padding in, and that's the shadow area. You can see there's white space next to my vector. If I pull that in on both sides, you'll see that we now have a dash, a space, and our vector. Unfortunately, you can't just copy a vector, so I need 2 diamonds, so I'm going to have to redraw another one that looks exactly like this. So I was 3 up and 3 out. So I will add a new vector. Okay, and then quickly draw this one. And again, fill it and pull in the padding so that they're right next to each other. And then after that, I'm going to add another space. So this space was 3. I will add space, and it will stay 3. So now we have dash, diamond, diamond, space, and then it repeats again. So 2-hour wall with diamonds. And of course, this line type that I have here included an S for a smoke rating. So we can add that. So I will add text, okay, S. And it gives you a preview so you can see about the size of your text. Let's see, 8 looks about right, maybe 9. And I want that space to be less next to the vector. So let's just actually see if I put the text, and I can reorganize the components here. If I put the text right next to the vector, it's pretty tight but still readable. But maybe I want just a little bit of space in there, so I will add a space. You can see it put it in the wrong spot, so I'm just going to move this one up, and I'm going to narrow this way down to 1. Give it a little breathing room, maybe even a half. Okay, and the dashes need to get a little bit longer, I think. All right, I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. I've got it scaled for the line thickness, so I'll click OK. And again, and one more time. Now I can come in either here in the properties bar or up at the top. 2-hour wall diamonds. I should actually change that to 2-hour smoke wall diamonds, but we can see it's here, and I'll change the line width. And that seems to be working well, but I do need to change the title of it, so I'll come back into manage quickly, modify 2-hour wall diamonds, modify that 2-hour smoke wall diamonds. Okay. Now if I select this, you'll see the line style gets deleted out of here, and that's because it doesn't exist anymore, but it didn't change the title of this. And so this will not be affected if I were to change it in the future. So I just want to click there, and now it's definitely assigned so that we have that correct. Okay, so the last line style we'll make are in wall batt insulation, and this is probably the most complicated, but it is just a vector. So let's draw a line. I'll select that line, go into manage. We'll go to our temp line styles, modify. I'm going to add batt insulation and click OK. So now in our components, I'm going to make this strictly from vectors. There is no line component, so we'll just go straight to vector and click OK. It'll be a little bit of a challenge. It's a guess and check. I've got a line through the middle here that I know I'm basing everything off of. And when I look at this batt insulation line, it looks like about the center I have a teardrop shape that extends just above the center line of our line and extends way below. I'm going to start by building that teardrop shape and go from there. So again, this is a little bit of guess and check until you get used to it, but remember, what we draw here is just going to get repeated over and over again. So I'll start with a line and start just above center. How about there? And I'll start my teardrop. Keep it symmetrical. And with an arc, I can start drawing an arc, but you'll see that arc goes the other way. And I can't change that unless I were to come in and actually start trying to modify that, which doesn't really work. This is just going to scale the arc. You don't have handles like you would in Illustrator. So I'm just going to delete that component, and I'm going to draw the arc from the other direction, from here down, and then from here up. So now we have our teardrop. And now I need to start repeating this teardrop. I can pull these in by getting rid of the padding. We don't need them overlapping quite that much. So now I have them padded. So the missing component now is basically just an arc that arcs back over to the next teardrop. So I think I'll come up here and draw that first half of that teardrop, and then draw the second half of it. And that does appear to work. As you can see in the preview, it looks pretty good. So I'm going to go with that. Now I am going to select scale to line thickness because I want to be able to fill a wall. So the only way to scale this up and down is to change the line width. So scale with line thickness is checked. I'll click OK. OK again, and one more time. Now with that line selected, I can come in and find Batt insulation, select that. You can see it assigns it, but with our line width so narrow, it is a pretty narrow Batt insulation. And so I will increase that size. So that actually works, and it looks pretty good. All right, so the last thing I want to demonstrate is a multi-line style. So let's draw a new line. And again, select our line, come into Manage, our line style set, modify that, and we'll add a new line. This one I'm going to call Fence. Click OK. Now I am going to select Scale with line thickness just to start. And we've got one line that I'm going to keep. I'm going to add a second line, and you'll see that shows up in the preview. We can offset that line by moving it further down. Now an offset +5 moves the line below, and you'll see that this first line is set as an offset of 0, so that's the one right in the middle. That one right in the middle, I'm just going to make a fence real quick. So we'll go with dashes and a vector. And I'll use the circle tool. Draw a circle that's not centered. So we'll get it centered. So it's actually too large. Let's just make it a little smaller and move it centered. Now I want to bring in my left and right padding because you can see there's a space in between, and a fence post will be connected to the chain link. So we'll just pull that in. And I need to go back and make the dashes wider. So it's a true fence. In this case, we'll just set that to 20. And now I've got my fence as the center line, but the curb that the fence is sitting on only has one line, so I need to add a line. Now you can see it put it out of order, but you can't actually drag these. The only way to do it is to use the offset tool. So in this case, we have our 0 offset fence. We have our first curb line at 5. This curb line I need to make -5. So I'll change that. And you can see that it automatically changed the order of these. -5 isn't quite right. Just give it a little bit more of a gap. -6 and +6. So now we have 3 different lines, and each one of these can have as many components as you need within it. In this case, I just have solid lines top and bottom with a fence in the middle. And I probably want to change the name of this to with curb. I'll click OK. OK again, and one more time. Now with my line selected, I can come down to our fence with curb. And again, this is scaled, so it's pretty narrow here, but I can make it bigger. And now we have a fence sitting on a curb. Okay, the last line demonstration is going to be a railroad track, and I'll just quickly show that here by drawing a line. And I'm going to run through this pretty quick since you're already familiar with how it works. I'll add railroad. And first thing is to make the second rail and set that spread apart. Now I'm going to add a vector component because there is no way of putting horizontal bars across this track. There are no components that do that. So we can do that with a vector. Okay. And I will draw a line from the top to the bottom. Now you'll see that this offsets it, and that's because this is all based on the center line, and we haven't created the other line for the other rail, which I did, but then just overrode it with the vectors. But what I need to do then is move some of these around. So let's add our second line, and you can see there it's lined up. Now I can move this one backwards because it's all going to be justified to the center. And so this one is offset 8. This one would have to be offset -8. But now our vector's in the wrong spot because our vector was offset 6. So if I move that vector back to 0, now we have our railroad track. But I want to pull these lines in. So I'll make them -6 instead, and 6. If I want to space out the bars across, I can select this and come in and change the padding. If I increase the padding on either side, it spaces the bars out. Okay through that. And I will change this to railroad. I hope this video was helpful. If so, you might want to head over to BBToolsets.com where you can purchase all of our tool sets. We have lots and lots of symbols for architects, engineers, and interior designers, including scaled symbols, furniture symbols, which are also scaled, and so much more. That's BBToolsets.com.